The town fell behind as the road snaked along the shore of Majestic Lake, weaving past houses of old friends and neighbors and crossing the bridge over the creek. Finally, she turned into a narrow driveway that wound through a thick stand of firs and cedars, slowly easing her old Jeep over the ruts and potholes. At the end of the drive, the headlights picked out the white clapboard and blue shutters of the cabin, but in the dark she could barely make out the shore of the lake 30 feet away. She had expected the cabin to be cold and dark, but light glowed from the windows. Her old pal Sean had told her he wasn't using it much these days and had offered it to her for the month. Smoke curled up from the chimney. She hadn't expected him to come by and light the fire, but thank goodness he had. The temperature was nudging freezing, and the cabin wasn't what you would call winterized, but she knew how to keep a fire going. She'd manage fine for the month. The privacy would be worth it. She'd lived in Fortune Bay all her life and knew how hard it was to keep everyone out of your business. Stepping out of the car, the damp air greeted her like an old friend. More like a heavy mist than actual rain, it hung in the air and clung to the rocks and trees. Most people didn't think water had a smell, but to Louise, the aroma of wet cedar and lake water was the smell of home, conjuring memories of rubber boot walks through the forest and teenage kisses in the rain. She grabbed the overnight bag she'd squeezed between the boxes packed into the back of the Jeep, then bent over and coaxed Scrawny out from under the seat. Bundling him inside her jacket, he buried his head in her armpit. She laughed. Tough guy. Making her way up onto the porch, she opened the screen door, and at her feet the welcome mat ka-flunked into place. It was possible she'd hit it with her foot, but she didn't think so. "Hello to you too, Augusta," she murmured. She'd heard the rumors. They may be true. If she was sharing the cabin with a ghost, it was probably better to stay on her good side. The front door was stuck. She rattled the knob, then put her hip to the solid wood door and gave it a thump. This time the door flew open, and she stumbled inside into the burly arms of a giant. "Blue, what are you doing here?" Blueton Humphreys stepped back, looking hard and deep into her eyes. This was new. Where was her hug? "Thought I'd heat the place up for you." Her heart warmed at the familiar gruffness of his voice. "Sean said you'd be back tonight, but I didn't expect you so early." He stooped to look into the furry face that peeked out of the front of her raincoat. "What have you here?" he asked. "Scrawny," Louise said, pulling the cat out for him to see. Blue laughed, a deep, throaty chuckle. "You named him Scrawny. You always were hard on your guys." He took the cat and rubbed him under the chin, and within seconds, Scrawny was purring like a muffler-less car. Setting the cat on the floor, he put his hands on Louise's shoulders, holding her at arm's length. "Geez, Louise, you're blonde again." He ran his hands down her arms, and even through her jacket, awareness tingled like phosphorescence in their wake. Louise blinked. This was new, too. Pulling off her beret, she ran a hand through her damp pixie cut. "I decided to go back to blonde. It's a change." She tugged his bushy beard. "But you haven't changed." Blue didn't respond, just crossed his arms over his chest. Louise knew him too well to be put off by his taciturn ways, and peered around him to get a better look at the cabin.